I lost 60% of my altcoin portfolio. In the previous cycle, I've lost 80% and then I still had a 100x on my portfolio. In this video, we're going to talk about my strategy to do it again. As you know, I've decided to go all in into altcoins in the summer of 2024, which was a little too early, but I'm as transparent as I can be, which is sharing my portfolio and the steps that I do. So I'm still holding that portfolio. And I've learned a lot because little did I know that the altcoins were going to crash afterwards, but I could have known, and I need to be fair, in hindsight everything is easy and I'm still in my own journey to make better decisions, which I think is the ultimate goal of making this content, where it's kind of a journal for myself to keep on improving. And I think that we all start to realize that given that most of the altcoins are down by 70 to 90% since December of 2024, it also signals that we are going to have a way better market going ahead, but that it's not anymore relied to crypto, but it's actually relying to macroeconomic events in general, which is quite normal because we have a mature asset class at this point. However, the current price action of crypto has provided the lowest interest into crypto for the past 3 years. As you can see, Miles has posted this chart out. It's the posts mentioning specific cryptos are nearing August 2023 levels, and that's actually the lowest point for the past 2.5 years. So we are getting into bear market territory, if you would say that. Anyways, it shows that there is a little low confidence into a positive outcome for the markets. As if you go back in time, the markets of 2021 remind us that in this period, we actually had the first 100x. For me, one of my coins went up 150x at this point in 2021 compared to the low already. And that low was made in November of 2020, and in March it was up 150x. So it is for sure a different environment. And in this period, I decided to go for newer coins because I think that newer coins are going to yield a higher return than older coins from the previous cycle. So I think that new technology solves old problems and therefore provides a higher return. I think that this still stands, but the altcoins have been getting crushed based on VC unlocks, based on macroeconomic events, based on sentiment in general, based on supply that's being floated around, because if you have a low float going into the market, it has a swing on both ways, and the lower the float, the heavier the swing will be. That's why I suppose that if the market starts to turn around, Bitcoin is probably going to go way higher than we all expect, based on the low float of supply that's being traded. And that principle also applies to ETH and everything on the risk curve. So I think we're not there yet, but there is a very strong correlation between risk on assets and risk off assets. And I discussed this in the previous update, but as long as everything compared to the US dollar goes down, and primarily the Chinese currency called renminbi, it's very unlikely to see altcoins start to do well. And in that sense, we might be on the edge of having that actual reversal. But the first thing is that we need to look at the status of the portfolio right now. The status is that it's down a lot. As I said at the beginning, it's actually down more than 60%. It is a hypothetical size of my portfolio. So we just said we invest $110,000 into this portfolio. The actual orders and levels that I have reflected into the spreadsheet are also the levels where I've been buying my assets. So this is completely how my personal portfolio is. But ultimately, it's also about the strategy and the game plan behind the portfolio. So let's look at the portfolio in the sense that we have it all here. The total assets per coin, the average price that we have bought it into, and the current price level. You can see that the 110K is currently worth $36,500. That is a lot, but as I said, I went down 80% in the previous cycle, which reversed with the 100x. And I think it feels quite uncertain to say, hey, the markets are going to yield me a good return with the current valuation. There's no purpose for all of these coins, but that sentiment can flip quite fast. And then things can go up substantially faster. So I'm not concerned about my current return. It doesn't feel great, that's for sure. And we have been making some mutations in the previous period. So as you can see in the first step, we sold our ENS position, which was 20K. We sold that entirely, and we used that money to reallocate it into different positions, which then, by allocating it into different positions, it lowers the valuation of those assets significantly. We've done that. We have added into our Renzo position, Rocket Pool, Aevo, and Omni positions, which then basically provided a double in terms of assets for all of those. So for instance, Renzo, we initially bought it at 14 cents, and then we bought it at 2 cents, through which the average is now at 7 cents as we doubled the entire position. And this game plan is going to stay like it is, in the sense that we have two ways of doing the actual strategy, which is we are going to be looking at a rebalancing strategy. We are going to do this on a monthly or quarterly basis. The more active or the more volatile the markets are, the more active we will be doing this. So for instance, we have a position of $7,000 on Tau, while the other ones are 5.3, 6.4, and 5.7. So we might be balancing these out a little bit. And when we look at the smaller coins, Wormhole is 3K, but Omni is 1.8, so we can start balancing that out a little bit too. And then additionally, we are also going to take profits on certain price levels. But we need to make sure that a lot of VCs that we talk to, we own our VC as well, but a lot of partners are looking at liquid positions because liquid positions are irrationally undervalued at this point. And they provide a tremendous opportunity with the potential upside that a VC wants to make out of investment. So, yes, it looks bad, but it's a screenshot of time. And I think that in 6 to 12 months from now, it starts to look way better. And that's going to be done by the strategy that I'm going to explain next. In all reality, I am currently stuck with my altcoin portfolio because I had the assumption that we were going to lower or bottom out at an earlier stage, and the markets kept on dipping. The dip keeps on dipping. And that is great if you have the ability to do a DCA approach, which in my case wasn't the case because I was fully allocated already. But you need to make sure when there's a lot of fear and uncertainty in the markets, there's panic, there's also an extreme opportunity. And the heavier the panic and the fear, the better the financial opportunities. This means that you should be looking to get into a position that's the opposite of your emotional behavior. And that's when you need to decide to go risk on. So why is that? Well, I've discussed this in the previous update, but gold is currently ballooning upwards in the sense that it's at 3.3K. Double-digit performance for this year, which results into risk-on assets selling off massively. And that is a crucial indication that we are getting a little overextended in terms of panic and fear. And that might be a case that you're going to say, well, I need to scrape off a little bit of my gold position and might be looking at an opportunity that is too good to be true, which is risk-on. You don't need to buy crypto assets overall, but you could be looking at a case of saying, hey, I want to have an allocation into tech stocks, or I would like to have an allocation into cryptocurrencies. And then if we reverse that into the cryptos, then we need to look at confirmations of those altcoins to do well. And in this case, I'm looking at altcoins compared to the Bitcoin valuation. And this is SAI versus Bitcoin on the 3-day chart, which is currently showing a potential bullish divergence, which might indicate that we are on the edge of having a reversal. Again, bullish divergence is the opposite of the price, or the RSI is doing the opposite of price, and one of the two is in the wrong. And when we start seeing this on multiple levels, for instance, Wormhole is still building up a weekly bullish divergence and is still in the process of trying to find a bottom. And additionally, we can see the exact same thing happening on Optimism. It's not a wrong period to say, okay, maybe gold is a little overextended at this point, and I'm going to be looking at a reversal. And then if we add on top of that, we are looking at the layer, which is the most important one for an indication of upwards trending markets for altcoins. Ethereum is making the lowest valuation on the RSI on the weekly and the monthly chart since its existence. So what are my two game plans when it comes to the strategy of my portfolio? First of all, we have seen such a big drop at this point, so we want to stay into the altcoin positions in the initial move upwards. If a reversal happens, it's coming out of nowhere, it's going to be macroeconomic driven, and because of the amount of shorts that are currently open, I suspect that we're going to have massive moves. And then we're talking about double-digit moves, triple-digit moves on some smaller altcoins because of the amount of liquidity that's going to be liquidated or shorts that are going to be liquidated. And in that sense, we need to look at a case that we say, okay, what is the first level of taking profits? Optimism has been rejecting here at the range low as resistance while acting in this range for a long time. So all the way towards that first take profit point, or at least the resistance, there's no point to start rebalancing. If we break through this level at $1.22, then it is going to be interesting to start doing the take profit strategy. And the first real target point is around the previous range high, which is between $1.70 to $2.10. And basically, that level can be reflected on all the positions. So if you go towards SAI against USDT, we can basically do the exact same. If it breaks through 20 cents, we go back into this range, and the first real target point is between 40 to 50 cents. Basically, until there's no point in selling any position, despite if some coin is going to move first compared to the other one. And then you get the second part of the strategy going into that potential big return that I'm looking for, and that's why I'm taking this risk, is let's say Tau goes to 15 grand here, then the rest remains flat, then I'm going to use the money that I've been making with Tau to be allocated into coins that haven't been running yet. And through that way, I keep on compounding and I keep on stacking my return into the altcoin portfolio. Finally, going back into ETH Bitcoin, if ETH Bitcoin is going to look overextended in the short term upwards and gold is overextended downwards, I'm going to decrease the amount of allocations that I have into risk on assets, going to get more into stables, and use the money to buy back into the dips to keep on compounding my return. And that's how I'm trying to maximize my exponential return into this cycle. And that is my strategy, to do the exact same as what I've been doing in the previous cycle, but then better. Now is not the time to sell your altcoin portfolio, while it might feel like it's the most painful period in time when you're looking to get an upside or expect an upside which might not feel like it's going to come. It's a painful conclusion, and it's not great to be down this much. Although every decision you make should be based on the information you have at that moment in time. In that sense, it looks like going risk on right now might be the best strategy going forward. And I'm not in the game to make it 2x at this point. I'm in the game to take all the risk that I can to do a 10 to 20x or even more. And we don't know how much it's going to be. We don't know how high the markets are going to go or what the risk on appetite is going to be. But I'm willing to take that risk. And if I'm willing to take that risk and I'm looking for such an upwards return, then I need to endure and accept the downside, which is accepting being down 60 to 70% or even more as part of the game. That's what altcoin investments or having an altcoin portfolio needs to feel like. Every day right now, people are leaving the crypto markets, which means that if you stay around in a few years or in a year from now, you're the one who will be called lucky. So stay in the game, hold your positions, and we'll talk again in the next update. During these markets, I'm always looking for opportunities to build my portfolio, and OKX is bringing you an opportunity. They are the first fully licensed exchange in Europe with the lowest fees. And to help you a little bit with your portfolio and to celebrate this milestone, they are giving away up to 50 euros in Bitcoin if you sign up today on the exchange. Signing up can be done within 5 minutes, and if you deposit 100 euros worth of crypto, you'll receive the first 20 euros in Bitcoin. Start rebuilding your portfolio today. Go to the link in the description or scan the QR code and enjoy up to 50 euro in Bitcoin.